Good afternoon. It's Friday, the 21st of November, 2025, just after 1 o'clock. Welcome to UK Column News. I'm your host, Mike Robinson. My co-host in the studio today, Patrick Henningsen. Welcome to the programme, Patrick.
It's great to be with you, Mike.
And we'll be joined today by Basil Valentine and Kit Klarenberg. Now, later in the programme, we're going to be asking whether the British military did actually attend a recent IDF event on the lessons to be learned from genocide. Kit Klarenberg will be covering organ trafficking. And we'll be looking at Trump's new, supposedly, peace deal for Ukraine, and also the latest British drive to convert Britain fully into a war economy. But we'll begin today with the trial of the Filton 6 or 24 or whatever it is.
Well, the case is 24. We'll bring this up on screen. But yes, correct. The trial is the Filton 6 currently. We do have somebody on the ground on day one of that. We'll hear from Wilsey in a moment here. But that is Elbit Systems. This is the Israeli company that supplies arms to Israel, with branches based in the UK. Those are the sites that have been targeted by direct action, by Palestine Action. And so the story is making a lot of headlines. Obviously, the stuff that is being focused on by the press, Mike, we'll talk about that in a bit, and we'll also hear about that from Basil Valentine as well. But it is getting quite a lot of traction. So this is going to shape the conversation, and obviously something important is also happening, Mike, isn't it? In just a couple of weeks, with regards to the prescription of Palestine Action.
Well, just in a few days, actually. We'll come on to that in a second. But as Patrick says, the trial of the six has begun at Woolwich Crown Court, and this, of course, is over alleged offences carried out during an attack on Elbit Systems factory in Filton, which is north of Bristol. The activists entered using a decommissioned prison van. They used red spray paint and sledgehammers to cause over £1 million worth of damage, including targeting Elbit's drone quadcopter production. So Will Colesill attended the first 4 days of the trial. Here is a quick report from him.
This is Will Colesill reporting for UK Column. Today I'm outside Woolwich Crown Court next to Belmarsh Prison, reporting on the Filton 6 trials involving Elbit Systems UK Limited. I'm reporting on Filton 6, namely Charlotte Head, Samuel Corner, Fatima Rajwani, Zoe Rogers and Jordan Devlin, charged with aggravated burglary being with weapons. It is alleged criminal damage, violent disorder that includes 3 or more people, putting people in fear of violence, and in the case of Sam Corner, grievous bodily harm. I've been down here for 4 days. On the first day, we saw protests by pro-Palestine activists.
My brother, Jordan Devlin, is one of the Filton 24 political prisoners, beginning their 10-week trial today. In occupied Palestine, there is a woman, just like me, whose brother is locked in an Israeli dungeon cell, where he will never get a fair trial, and she may never see him again. Her beloved Palestine is now 73% Israeli settlers. Her homeland colonized, voices silenced, and her people violently terrorized. Palestine has become the perfect laboratory for the Israeli military techno-complex, which is led by Elbit Systems.
Just adds yet another level of horror to the whole situation and hypocrisy on the part of the British government to allow this to happen. And one would expect Elbit Systems to be secretive and hypocritical and murderous, but for the British government to allow that to happen in this country, I mean, obviously the Filton 6, the original 6 who exposed that, are doing a great service to this country, and that's what should be recognised.
There was some talk in the Court of the Sound which could be heard from the courtroom. However, the judge decreed that this could not really be avoided. We've heard the opening from the prosecution, and we've gone into our second witness, our first witness being a policewoman, our second witness being one of the security guards. We've seen pictures, we've also seen video evidence of the event. For context, Elbit Systems is a company with links to Israel, with a parent company in Israel, and there are concerns which are being alleged as to its involvement or its links to the current ongoing devastation in Gaza. We've heard how the defendants are alleged to have, dressed in red jumpsuits, brought in whips, hammers, axes and sledgehammers, some of these being agreed facts, into Elbit Systems. Police interviews by some of the defendants assert that they were not taken as weapons. However, with the planning of the events, the prosecution has said it has evidence of the planning and it has access to planning documents which it allegedly gained from some access to some of the defendants' telephones. We have seen damage to the building, computers smashed glass, smashed drones, what looked like drone operation units, a disabled toilet which was smashed, and red paint sprayed all over the place from fire extinguishers with the words Palestine written on them, which could be made out from the video evidence. Staff and some of the defendants faced off. There was shouting, there was swearing at the staff from what we've seen on video evidence, and we saw these items being raised, including the sledgehammers being raised over the heads. We also see what appeared to be the weapons being swung at the staff. Also from the video evidence, we've seen staff disarm some of the defendants, taking these items away from them, and we've also seen barricades being put up to trap staff in certain areas, which did not actually seem to be effective. When police arrived, we have seen a strike on video evidence, which appears to be performed by Sam Corner, bringing down a sledgehammer onto the back of a policewoman, which is alleged to have caused her a fractured spine. As I've said, we've heard testimony from one police officer. We've also heard from a Mr. Shaw, one of the 4 security guards on duty at the time. He was brought in as a temporary security guard, we heard, due to a hole being found in the fence. During events, Mr. Shaw today testified that he received a gash to the head which needed to be fixed with staples, and we saw in video evidence and pictures blood running down Mr. Shaw's face. We also heard about bruises all over his body, and we've seen pictures of these bruises with the chest, the bicep, the back, the shoulder. Much of the evidence so far appears damning. Remains to be seen what is going to be used as the defence. There may be wider implications of this event. The full trial is scheduled to take around 40 days. I will not be down here to cover all 40 days, but I do expect to be back to hear more of the defence, which arguments they're using, and almost definitely to cover the verdict. This is Will Coleshill reporting from Woolwich Crown Court for UK Column.
So thanks to Will for that. There's clearly, Basil, if we can welcome you to the programme, clearly a lot more evidence to see here and here in the coming weeks. Obviously, we're hearing the president, Will's talking about the prosecution evidence at the moment. We haven't even begun the defence, and that may not happen for quite some time yet. So, I mean, what are your initial thoughts on what's happened so far?
Well, it's the first time we've heard those details. They weren't in any previous police report or on any charge sheet. So, it's a revelation to all of us exactly what the case consists of. Just referring to the protesters outside, you may have noticed one of them held a banner referencing political interference in the case. And this is certainly an extremely important question, as is the treatment of the Filton Six and indeed the whole Filton 24 since their initial arrests, which were back in August of last year. So people have been held without a trial and without the possibility of parole already for 15 months, which in a case where the damage is 99% of the time only against property is already obviously a form of punishment. Those people will never get that time back. But on the subject of political interference, there have been revelations this week about high-level contacts between former Israeli ambassador and various Conservative Party grandees. And we can only speculate the extent to which this openly, avowedly Zionist government is being influenced by the Israel lobby to make an example of the protesters and activists disrupting the production of drones, which, let's remember, have been used in war crimes. The cases are almost without number. Drones playing the sound of babies crying in order to entice civilians into the street who are then shot at. That was just one of the things that's been going on. Drones used to shoot medical staff through the windows of hospitals. So there's a very clear moral case that Elbit has no business being in Britain, the question that the court will be asked to decide is whether or not the activists were preventing a bigger crime by undertaking the crime that they did. And that is likely to be the basis of their defense.
The judge was very clear to the jury that they weren't to take into consideration the fact that the Palestine action had been prescribed already, that they were to judge the case on the evidence that's presented. My question, I'd be interested in your thoughts on whether that's even something which is possible, bearing in mind the amount of publicity there has been around this group over the last 6 or 8 months in particular.
Well, that'll be up to the individual members of the jury themselves as to whether or not they feel in any way their opinions about the group are compromised by its subsequent prescription. On the question of the prescription of Palestine action, there has been an interesting development just in the last few hours, really, which is that Richard Barrett, former global director of counterterrorism MI5, has said that the prescription goes too far. He recently chaired a commission to examine UK terror law and concluded it was too broad and risked inconsistency, perceptions of unfairness, and the treatment of legitimate protest as terrorism because it relies heavily on executive discretion. Well, when that executive, as is the case with this present government, is avowedly and unashamedly on the side of well, in this case, the perpetrators of genocide, then can we really expect them to apply terror law without favour or without prejudice? And it seems that Mr. Barrett thinks not, and of course he's right. And this will no doubt be presented to the judicial review, which is looking into the legality of the prescription of Palestine action.
I think that's a big dynamic here, Mike, is that this trial is happening now. They've been held on remand for 15 months.
Right.
And this is happening now after the prescription of Palestine. As you and Basil pointed out, that's been the public conversation before. So for a jury trial, this is potentially problematic. But what's worse is that while they're not being subject to terrorism charges, they're being treated in a due process framework that is for terrorism. In other words, the defendants are detained, not allowed communication with the other defendants, and also they're being kind of treated in sort of within that terrorism framework. The state is treating them as Category A prisoners, as it were. So I mean, it's. So what would the prosecution, what would the state hope to achieve from this outside of the usual criminal damage, possible GBH charge there? But yeah, there's so much political pressure being heaped upon this right now. I just think that this is potentially very politicized.
Well, I think it is. I mean, there's no question that it's a very politicized trial. Basil, I suppose my last question on this, because there is a GBH charge here because of the alleged hitting of the policewoman on the back with the sledgehammer. I mean, do you feel that there was a line crossed with that particular action?
Well, I don't want to prejudice the case, and I haven't seen any of the evidence, so I couldn't possibly comment on an individual action. But to go back to the imprisonment, yes, Patrick's right. All 24 defendants were labelled high risk on arrival at HMP Bronzefield and Peterborough, placed under surveillance regimes normally reserved for violent offenders. Now, as you say, there may have been a violent act committed by one individual at one action. I don't know. That's for the court to decide. But nevertheless, all of them were placed under these high risk, maximum security conditions, despite the non-violent nature of the vast majority of the charges against them. It's reminiscent of the treatment of Julian Assange.
And I wonder about access to legal counsel, because that's something that Julian Assange was not given. He wasn't given free access to his legal counsel, and even had his court documents taken by Serco guards during the hearings, where he lost all of his briefings and things like that. So all of that stuff happens, believe it or not, even in this great justice system that Britain has. So I wonder, it'll be interesting to hear more about what's going on with the defendants and behind the scenes, and are they afforded proper due process or not? That will be something certainly that we should be looking for, and hopefully our courts.
Well, we hope so. And so, just one final comment. Will we ever know the extent to which the Israeli embassy, and by extension Tel Aviv, have put pressure on ministers to make an example of these people?
That's a very good question. Maybe we'll go some way to answering that in a couple of minutes' time. But anyway, before we do that, and before we move on to other matters related to this, I just want to finish off here by saying that the trial itself, of course, as has already been said, is going to run for 10 weeks in total. It's going to run in parallel, as Patrick hinted at earlier, with the challenge to the prescription of Palestine Action, which is due to begin on the 25th of November. So, obviously that's going to go in parallel. These two cases are not supposed to interfere with each other at all.
But yet they probably will.
They may, yes.
They already are, one would argue. But on this same topic here, there was a tragedy that happened as well related to this. We'll bring this up on screen. This is Mint Press News. A journalist died while covering the Filton 24 protests after an attack on the demonstrators by pro-Israel counter-protesters. And let's hear more about this. This was posted on Mint Press News' Facebook page just in the last day or so. David Lear passed away after collapsing outside HMP Pentonville on Saturday the 15th, and the incident occurred minutes after an alleged violent altercation involving a pro-Israel counter-protester during a solidarity demonstration for imprisoned Palestine Action activists, the Filton 24. The deceased, David Lear, had been identified as a well-known London community journalist, independent videographer who was documenting the protest. And the death is currently under investigation. So that happened. And so the results of this, and we'd like to get Basil's comment on this. This is quite an interesting one. It will be interesting to see if there is found to be any connection between the violent altercation with the Israeli counter-protester and this journalist who died of a heart attack. That should, in theory, Basil, raise to the level of mainstream coverage. What do you think?
Well, I think it would almost certainly have been raised to the level of mainstream coverage had the pro-genocide protester collapsed and died. I think it would have been all over the national newspapers that what a tragedy this was, particularly if that individual was a certain faith. And no doubt it would have been used to demonize the protesters. But because it was somebody who was there in solidarity with Palestine Action, it has been dutifully buried by the corporate media.
Unfortunate collateral damage, according to the mainstream media, not even worth a headline. Anyway, we'll keep an eye to see if they do get coverage on this. But there was another violent altercation, which Basil is aware of, and Crispin Flintoff, who has a great show and a great YouTube channel, he interviewed Nick Georges, and this happened in Surrey, Mike, recently. This was a 73-year-old protester, peace protester, protesting for Palestine, was attacked. And this is what he said. The interview is conducted in his car via web link. But listen to this, and where this conversation is going to go, it seems to be pretty obvious by the end of it. But let's roll this.
One thing Israel hates is people supporting or protesting for Palestine. Now, one way they can try and crush Palestine protesters in this country is via Tommy Robinson. Tommy Robinson is funded entirely by Israel. He's a huge fan of Israel. And in the last couple of months, we have noticed a dramatic rise in the violence and the aggression and the hatred with which we're being met. we're getting white, and obviously it's Zionists are still protesting against this, but now it's dramatically being taken over by white van man, your average white builder, and the amount of people in vans who have had literally windows wound fully down. They're half out their vans in their anger and their rage, giving us the finger, swearing abuse at us. And this increase has really been dramatic in the last month, maybe a couple of months. So something's definitely happened. And, it's getting very dangerous now to protest in Palestine, which is obviously the intention and the fear that they want to spread. Tommy Robinson had to go to court the other day, and he was interviewed before going to court saying, normally, he said, I crowdfund for these court things to pay for it. But he said, I don't have to worry this time because Elon Musk has said categorically he will fund my defence completely. So I'm sure Tommy Robinson has told all his people they can do what they like because they will get all the support they need when it comes to court, which is quite a chilling thought.
So a 73-year-old protester, he was knocked unconscious, had a concussion, also aggravated heart condition as well. And so that was an attack by multiple, let's say, younger people. And so what he had to say there was quite an interesting observation. He's on the front line of the protests, and he's saying there's been a change in the profile of the people coming after them. And I want to bring Basil Valentine back on this. Basil, I don't know if you've seen this clip or not. This was on the Crispin Flintoff show, but what are your thoughts on what was just said there by Nick George from Surrey?
Well, we know that it's impossible to make Israel look good when it's just committed and is continuing to commit genocide. So the edict has gone out from Tel Aviv to demonize all Muslims and all their supporters as well, and to conflate Palestine solidarity, which is about respecting international law and humanitarian issues as much as anything else, with the Muslim community. See, so the skinhead types you saw there and the white van man that Mr. George referred to have been whipped up into a frenzy, really, a very aggressive one, by, unfortunately, what appears to be, at least for the time being, a successful campaign by Robinson and his handlers to direct ire that they would love to direct Britain's Muslim community at Palestine solidarity protesters, because you can't be accused of a hate crime if you are targeting white people protesting in support of Palestine. But of course, if you go around simply abusing people outside mosques or things, then you can. So it's a sort of redirection of the the resentment that's been whipped up in recent years, and focusing it on, very, we must say, sort of, dare I say it, low IQ, low information people, directing their ire at anything to do with Palestine, because, of course, it's also associated with left-wing causes, so on and so forth. So it becomes a sort of suitably dressed up bête noire for Robinson's dim-witted acolytes.
The comments that caught me was the Elon Musk comment, Mike. The fact that Elon Musk is through, and we'll bring him up on screen. This is Elon at the gate crashing the AFD rally, albeit remotely. But he is throwing a lot of money at this, and not only Elon, but also Peter Thiel as well. They're flooding the European political. They're flooding the European political system with cash, and nobody knows really where this is going to end, Mike. He's also trying to oust Farage or split the reform vote. So Musk is doing all of these things. So that's the part.
But we can't forget he's just been given $1 trillion by Tesla. So his salary has just been settled at $1 trillion. And this to me is massively dangerous. Whenever someone like that gets that sort of quantity of money, what's he going to do with it? He's not spending it on cars for himself. He's not spending it. He's spending it doing exactly this kind of activism, in inverted commas.
There are the 20 baby mamas, but that's another story. But
even they can't eat $1 trillion worth of food, So,
but this is American money flooding into British and European politics, particularly into the sort of far right end of the political spectrum.
Right.
And that should really concern a lot of people. And it's what he said about their legal expenses being covered. I mean, imagine if that's an actual thing. That's the accusation by Nick George. If this is true, it is very disturbing.
Right. So do you want to mention Farage again?
Well, not really, but we just threw him up on screen to say this is all part of that equation as well. So we'll continue this political conversation in the coming weeks and months. But something happened with the IDF made an announcement, didn't they?
They did. Let's just put that on screen. So on X a couple of days ago, or a week or so ago, the IDF posted an international seminar on operational lessons from the war across all arenas. Began today with senior commanders and officials from various militaries worldwide, led by the IDF. Participating countries include the United States, Canada, United Kingdom, Germany, Finland, India, Greece, Cyprus, Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland, Austria, Estonia, Japan, Morocco, Romania, Serbia, and Slovakia. And they said the purpose of the seminar is to strengthen cooperation, enhance familiarity with diverse operational approaches, exchange professional knowledge and experience between the participating militaries, and reinforce understanding of the IDF's activity. Now, we find this interesting that the UK was mentioned in that. So Charles wrote to the Ministry of Defence. Let's bring it on screen. Well, this was their response. They said no UK officials attended the event in question. That's a very interesting response. Well, we decided we wanted a bit of clarification on that. And so the clarification that the Ministry of Defence gave us was the invitation was not declined, but no UK officials were able to attend the event in question. Now, the language here is very, very clear. This is a clear effort to obfuscate and hide the truth because, of course, military personnel would never be described as officials. The term official applies to civilian staff. That might be civil servants. We might include spooks in that, but we certainly would not include military personnel. So this denial that the UK was attending is no denial at all. I don't know, really.
But to say the invitation was not declined, that's a political statement,
right,
designed to show that we're not against Israel, basically,
and not against the event either,
and not offending their Israeli counterparts. But the Telegraph ran a story. It's funny, when the tweet that we put up, we showed you a minute ago, the Telegraph ran a story yesterday saying that Britain would not be sending anybody because they didn't want to. They didn't want to be involved.
Which is why we decided to contact the Ministry of Defence and get their take on it. So actually, the Telegraph was quite definitive, suggesting that Britain had not attended. The Ministry of Defence, somewhat less definitive about that. And in fact, following these statements from the Ministry of Defence, we went back to the IDF and asked them for verification about whether Britain attended or not, and they basically just reiterated the earlier statement. So they did not deny that Britain was there. They didn't say we weren't there, and in fact they basically would neither confirm nor deny in a sort of simple language.
But their press releases went out to the Israeli media, and they all say that Britain attended.
They did.
The UK attended. So there's completely inconsistent
total inconsistency
on this.
there.
So
yeah.
It'll be interesting. We'll see. This may go somewhere, it may not, but we'll keep our eyes on it.
So Basil, thank you very much for joining us so far today. I believe you'll be with us for Extra as well. So we'll see you in a little bit. But let's move on then. If you like what the UK column does, you'd like to support us. If you have a look on the front page of the UK Column website, there's a link to take you to a page which will explain how you can support us. We absolutely need your financial support if you can possibly do that. But if you can't, please at least share anything you see on the Column website, because that helps us defeat the censorship regime we face. Very briefly, Germ at 7 p.m. tonight with Tim West. We've got Carlza at 9 p.m. Discussing whether Taiwanese public opinion is shifting on reunification with China. And if you didn't see Charles' interview with Charles' interview in Farming yesterday, it is on the UK Column website now, and also Vanessa's latest article on Jelani and how he's being pushed around the world as a puppet is on the website now. So please join us for that. Okay, let's move on, Patrick. And we're delighted to have Kit Klarenberg with us today.
Yeah, two great articles that Kit has authored. One on the international organ trafficking networks, and the other is new disclosure on 9/11 that was missed in the media coverage. But I want to welcome him on to the program right now to talk about this first story. This is up on Kit's Substack. Kit, welcome to the UK column this week.
Hey, how's it going?
Very well, very well. But this is a very disturbing story. Kit, we've seen elements of this rear its ugly head in Syria, in Gaza, in Ukraine, and other places. And now you've kind of brought this story full circle, and it happened because of this arrest of this Israeli, I don't know what to call him, businessman, oligarch, millionaire. But what you've uncovered here, Kit, is very disturbing, and surprise, surprise, it traces back to Israel. But tell us about this global Zionist organ trafficking conspiracy.
Yeah, sure. So, just as a bit of background, ever since the 1990s, Palestinians, including Palestinian medical professionals, have been shouting from the rooftops that the Zionist entity is harvesting the organs of Palestinians, both living and dead, in its custody. And the Israeli state has typically typically responded to these allegations as an anti-Semitic blood libel, of course. No, the reality is that Israel is the international center of illegal organ trafficking and harvesting, and a significant proportion of the organs under the hammer, which buyers pay up to $200,000-$300,000 for, are sourced from Palestinians. There is I honed in on this particular story of the arrest of the Israeli-Ukrainian Boris Wolfman, rather aptly named, because he was a very prominent figure within the illicit organ trade internationally for many years. He acted with total impunity. He was wanted in multiple jurisdictions and was subject to an Interpol red notice. He somehow lived at liberty in Turkey for many, many years while running further organ harvesting schemes. This stuff is really quite sophisticated. So the Israeli mafia, I'm sure they operate with state approval and sanction. They coordinate with organized crime networks in very poor countries, and they lure people from the global south, typically, to a network, a kind of international network of hospitals and medical centers, with promises that they'll get tens of thousands of dollars for their organs. Then typically they are given little, if not nothing, and sent packing with zero supplementary medical care, therefore putting their lives at significant risk. What's quite striking is that over and over and over again, there have been examples of organ trafficking conspiracies being busted, in every corner of the globe. In most cases, and when I say most, I mean pretty much all of them, the criminal trail leads back to Tel Aviv. In 2015, the European Parliament published a very detailed report on the illicit organ trade, and it repeatedly makes the point that Israel is at the forefront of this. Now, you might think, given that this is deeply criminal activity, it's on top of just being horrendous from a moral and medical ethical perspective, that this would be a high risk venture for someone to undertake. No, over and over and over again, there have been people have evaded justice despite overwhelming evidence of their involvement in these schemes. Some people have vanished without trace. They're probably be in some kind of protective custody somewhere. Courtesy of the Zionists. But I mean, in the rare event that people are actually captured for or subject to legal repercussions for this activity, they're given a slap on the wrist. So in the mid 2000s in the US, there was a rabbi, I believe his name was Isaac Rosenbaum. He was arrested by the FBI for running this international organ smuggling and trafficking conspiracy that spanned multiple countries. It basically bribed American doctors to carry out illegal procedures, and he received 2.5 years in prison and a minor fine. He must have reaped in millions doing this over many years. But and the FBI clearly invested an enormous amount of time, money, and energy in amassing evidence to justify his arrest and prosecution. And then it didn't really lead to anything, and everybody kind of forgotten about it. Now, I think that the Gaza genocide has really kind of brought this phenomenon into sharp relief, because the Israeli authorities are holding on to a vast amount of Palestinians, which in some cases, the Zionist occupation forces have raided from mass graves and transported back to Tel Aviv. And on the rare occasions that these bodies are released to the friends and family and loved ones of people in question, they're usually so deformed that it's impossible to conduct autopsies and tell if their organs have been stolen, or they're delivered having been held at kind of -70 temperatures. So they're like this frozen block, and therefore medical examinations are again very difficult, if not impossible. And there have been numerous reports from organisations like Euromed Monitor, which point to how the doctors working for the Red Cross who've received or inspected these bodies see very clear signs that their organs have been harvested wholesale. So again, this is quite clearly being done with state approval, if not encouragement. And I might add that after the turn of the new millennium, there was this individual called Yehuda Hiss, who is the head of Israel's Abu Kabir Institute, which is this forensic science institute, and its name is taken from the former Palestinian village which was ethnically cleansed and destroyed, that locale is now where this forensic center is based. And he openly admitted that during the First Intifada, which was the first Palestinian uprising against Zionist oppression from the late 80s until the early 90s, that he was given a green light to take whatever he wanted from the vast amount of bodies that were passing through the Institute. And he was not only not reprimanded after he made these public disclosures, he received a promotion and a pay raise.
Kit, just in the interest of time, we just got a couple of minutes left, but we're going to show on screen. This is some of the data in Kit's report. Let's bring this up on screen here. Typical profile here of the typical, quote, donor, and then the typical recipient. As you can see, this is a lopsided equation, which Kit alluded to there. And here is the global network. Let's take a look at that. As you can see, all roads lead back to Tel Aviv. All roads lead back to Israel, and you see Kosovo in the frame there, as well as some other countries, Saudi Arabia as well. And so if you look in this article, and this is a great report, we've got a link to this in our show notes here. Eye lenses, cochleas missing, skin missing, when these Palestinian bodies are finally returned. But this is the one I want to quickly ask you about. We just have a minute left, Kit. This is from Pristina in Kosovo. Tell us how this factors into the story.
Oh yeah, sure. So, I mean, allegations of the Kosovo, which is of course home to the US's largest military base in Europe by some margin, Camp Bondsteel. Allegations that Kosovo is a centre of organ trafficking have long abounded. In October 2008, it was confirmed that yes, this rather unwelcoming welcome sign that's on screen for the Medicus Clinic. An Israeli and a notorious Turkish organ trafficker called Yusuf Somnez. They were, again, luring poor, disadvantaged people to this medical center, harvesting their organs and selling them on to the highest bidder. The police caught on to this after a young Turkish man collapsed at Pristina Airport and was found to have had his kidney recently removed. Wolfman, the aforementioned, was involved in this and fled Kosovo for Turkey thereafter. This was a pretty significant case which got an enormous amount of media coverage, and it seemed that Kosovo authorities were very, very keen to prosecute, and yet everyone involved remains at large, apart from now Boris Wolfman. And so we shall see whether his prosecution sheds any further light on the kind of criminal networks he was operating in. But I mean, chances of justice for others involved in the syndicate, probably zero, sadly.
Yeah, so thank you for this, Kit. And again, this report in our show notes, go visit Kit at Substack. We'll come back to Kit in a few moments for some 9/11 revelations as well, Mike. But the big peace deal, or the latest peace deal, the 28-point peace deal, Trump and the Russians apparently have put something together, and they've given it to Zelensky and the Europeans for approval. Not going so well.
Is it not? Right. What a surprise.
Let's take a look at this deal. So we'll bring this up on screen. Here we go. These are the two main stakeholders in this one. Apparently, this was decided. So this edition of Let's Make a Deal, let's see what they've got in store for us here. Obviously, this is the belated peace deal. Here are the key points. You've got Donald Trump, Putin, and Zelensky down below there towards the bottom, where he is comfortable. No NATO membership, that's the stipulation. Next, EU membership, okay for Ukraine. And again, this has been agreed in principle between Russia and the US. Crimea, Donetsk, and Luhansk are recognized as Russian territory. That's going to be a sticking point. Kherson and Zaporizhia are frozen along the current line of contact. The size of the armed forces of Ukraine is capped, and Ukraine remains a non-nuclear state. So those are the kind of more military, territorial highlights in here. Obviously, there's a lot more than this, Mike, but you can see already things there that are just going to be red lines for the Europeans, and definitely for Zelensky if he wants to survive into 2026. So here are the interesting economic points. Sanctions to be lifted on Russia. G8 membership reinstated for the Russian Federation. 100 billion in frozen Russian assets will go towards Ukraine's reconstruction. Interesting that Russia would have approved that in principle. But the U.S. receives 50% of the profits of those reconstruction contracts. So Donald Trump's got his transaction baked in there, and Europe must contribute an additional 100 billion towards this reconstruction effort as well. So he's really sticking it to the Europeans here. So Donald's not sticking his hand in his pocket for reconstruction, but the Europeans have to.
Right.
That's interesting here. And it continues. The remaining frozen Russian assets are directed to a joint American-Russian fund for projects. So Trump wants to be business partners with the Russians. This is going to drive a lot of people around the bend. You can be sure about that. And then finally, this is the difficult part for Zelensky. Elections in Ukraine to be held 100 days after an agreement is signed. So of course, he's not going to sign this agreement, Mike. So you can see already the reaction on this. And so this is the problem. That's the problem. Getting this past these guys. And in particularly, Mike, this guy. That one has a particular problem, doesn't he, with this?
Well, he absolutely does. But well, certainly he does in all the public statements. And just a couple of days ago, in the United Nations, this lovely gentleman, Archie Young, who's the UK's Deputy Permanent Representative to the UN, he was making a speech, if you like, to the Security Council and really setting down the UK's position. Our position is clear. We do not and will never recognise Russia's illegal annexation of Crimea, because, of course, that's part of this as well. Borders must not be changed by force.
Really?
That's an unbelievably hypocritical position, is it not? We're going to come on to more British hypocrisy.
Does that count? Does Kosovo count there?
Well, perhaps we need to be returning some other borders that have been changed by force from the other side.
And Hungary should get all its territory back after World War I as well. Well, that was sorted by force, wasn't it?
How far back do we go? But if we put him back on screen, then he followed up by saying, "We deplore the worsening human rights situation, condemn the militarization of Crimea," because they keep pushing the same old narratives again, particularly which got your goat this morning, Patrick, including illegal mobilization of residents, disproportionate targeting of Crimean Tatars, and the militarization of children through paramilitary programs. This is the British propaganda rhetoric right here.
Wait, go back to that one. Including illegal mobilization of residents?
Yes.
So in other words, if the residents want to raise a militia to defend their communities,
that's illegal.
And secede, doesn't that fall under Article 1 of self-determination of the UN Charter? I'm just saying.
I'm not aware that in Crimea there's any sort of conscription gangs running around, whereas in Ukraine we definitely see that on a regular basis.
Oh, definitely not. In fact, many Ukrainian soldiers who were Ukrainian nationals defected to the Crimean side immediately after Maidan. Hundreds, if not thousands, of people fell into that category. That's to say nothing about multiple referendums that Crimea attempted to secede from Ukraine after the Iron Curtain fell. Of course, no talk about that. But from a legal point of view, we've spoke to many international law scholars, Mike. Crimea has a textbook case for independence. It's very clear cut, and historically, it's a much stronger case than Kosovo. That's for sure, if you really want to get into this debate.
But anyway, Britain is clearly going to be 100% against any territory going to Russia or being perceived to be going to Russia, no matter what it actually is. So, do you think this plan has a chance?
Well, I don't think it has a chance with regards to getting the Europeans or Zelensky to agree to it. But I am surprised, Mike, to see some of those bullet points, because I didn't think the Trump administration had it in them. But better late than never. They're trying to mail this one in before Christmas. But again, nothing's going to stop the British or the Europeans or Zelensky from sabotaging anything that's going on here in terms of moving things towards a negotiated settlement. But at least it's on the record and people can see. Russia gave major concessions there. You're talking about 100 billion. You're talking about other concessions that we highlighted there. So,
well, if this is right, we're talking about them letting go effectively stolen assets.
Stolen assets, and then getting into a business arrangement with a country that's already basically screwed you, the United States. So I mean that if that's not a show of good faith from Moscow, considering what's been done to them vis-a-vis sanctions and all of the other sort of broken deals, promises. And if we want to go right back to the Minsk Accords and UN Resolution 2202, we can reverse this timeline and make a huge case here against what the U.S. and its European partners have done to exacerbate and create this conflict that everybody is losing their minds over.
Kit, we're just about to move on to 9/11, but before we do, have you got any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, the peace plan is. I mean, I'm surprised. I'm likewise surprised that Russia has apparently made these fairly significant concessions. They've been willing to do this since the very start, as long as their basic security requirements are met. But yeah, I mean, the Ukrainians are not going to accept this. I think, the deranged, yapping Kaya Kallas has said that this is, that this is a betrayal of Kiev and that we won't support this. And I mean, the reality is that, if it was accepted by the Ukrainian side, there's probably going to be, an internal second Maidan led by fascist Western-backed, Azov right sector, all of these neo-Nazi paramilitary groups, and also the threat of massive blowback towards European countries, because they've been quote unquote stabbed in the back by their sponsors. So I'm highly unlikely this deal is going to go ahead. It's the best that Ukraine can get at this point. That I think perhaps we'll probably see fighting continue for maybe up to another year, and then go through the same cycle of Ukraine being offered an even worse deal, maybe where they get to keep Kiev. We shall see. But I mean, I zero optimism that this will go ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting. I agree with Kit, by the way. We're going to do another round of this story in a year's time, and it's not going to be good for the Ukrainians by that time. But the subject of 9/11 has reared its head once again, September 11, 2001, and particularly, and I, again, don't mean to trigger anybody with this animation. I didn't realize it flew in like that, like a plane would fly in. The 19 hijackers of 9/11, 7 of which I believe were alive afterwards, which is another story anyway. But Kit has written a great piece on this. It's up on his Substack. Here it is. Court filings exposes 9/11 cover-up. Kit, we've got a few minutes left, but explain to us what you have discovered here, Kit, because I didn't see a lot of media coverage about this, but I'm glad that you highlighted it. Go ahead.
Well, no, thank you very much, Patrick. Well, yeah, I mean, just in brief, like in April 2023, the Office of Military Commissions, which is the court which is charged with prosecuting 9/11 suspects like Khaled Sheikh Mohammed, it released this bombshell filing. It was released via FOI, which concluded that at least 2 of the alleged hijackers had been recruited by the CIA using the Saudis as a liaison. Now, I reported on that at the time, it kind of blew up, but the same document has all sorts of illuminating insight into how the 9/11 Commission, which was this whitewash farce set up to not investigate the attacks and not get to the truth, buried the CIA's involvement with the hijackers and the centrality of the Saudis to that. And yeah, I mean, I would urge, given that we're kind of push for time here, I would urge people to read the piece in full. It contains numerous kind of first-hand testimony from people who worked on the 9/11 Commission who were blocked whenever in their attempt to investigate the Saudi connections by the chief Philip Zelikow, who was very close to the Bush administration, was a kind of rabid neocon who was calling for preemptive war against Iraq in the late 1990s. So someone with a lot of conflicts of interest and someone who shouldn't have been heading this body. It has all sorts of, yes, as I say, kind of startling first-hand insight of staffers getting fired, the restrictions on what could be asked and who could be questioned. It was very, very clear that a lot of people on the commission were absolutely convinced that the Saudis were centrally implicated in what happened, and that they were doing this on the CIA's behalf to lend some kind of cover. I think also as well, it's important to bear in mind that the CIA officers who ran the unit that recruited the hijackers, which was called Alex Station, many of them after 9/11 went on to lead the CIA's torture program, which was all about getting false testimony out of detainees, which is a very effective means of covering their own tracks and offering up a false narrative to the public that could justify the war on terror, and indeed a false narrative of what happened on 9/11, which shockingly, according to polls, a majority of people worldwide still believe. This is despite the fact that, yes, a Senate investigation found that the torture program elicited zero factual information, and detainees frequently fabricated their answers to questions because they wanted the horrific abuse to which they were being subjected to stop. The aforementioned Khaled Sheikh Mohammed admitted under waterboarding to plotting to blow up buildings that hadn't even been built yet when he was captured. So like it's that level of farce. But I felt it necessary to write this because there's we are now, nearly 2.5 decades on from this kind of world-changing day, the effects of which we still feel. The effects of which are still reverberating today, and it impact like daily life, like all sorts of restrictions on bringing liquids with you on planes. That's a legacy of 9/11. All of these completely ludicrous and unnecessary security measures that were implemented following the attack, most of them are still in place. The Patriot Act is, effectively still operational, and as we saw with COVID, people are pretty overwhelmingly willing to unquestionably accept more of this. More state intrusion, more curtailment on civil liberties, etc. Because they've been propagandized into believing there's a massive threat facing them, and all of this is necessary to protect them, which is quite worrying, really, and it's something that we need to fight back against as firmly as possible.
Yeah, thank you, Kit, and thank you for highlighting this story. And, regardless of what you think happened on 9/11, everybody out there, the point is what's been highlighted here is that the so-called hijackers, this story doesn't even stack up, and completely infiltrated or handled by U.S. intelligence with Saudi intelligence, so forth. So the whole thing, like Nord Stream, and the super soldiers on the 50-foot yacht stinks to high heaven. But again, go to Kit Klarenberg's Global Delinquents. Go to kitklarenberg.com. It'll take you to his Substack page. We'll bring that up on screen here. That's Kit's main outlet, and some great reports here. I encourage everybody to read them, share them, and support this level of independent journalism. It's very, very important. But thank you very much, Kit.
Kit will be joining us on Extra, we hope, as well. So, okay, let's finish off today with a little bit of propaganda. And British Secretary of State for War, as we would like to call him, John Healey, gave a big speech a couple of days ago to ramp up the anti-Russia propaganda. Now, this was done to justify more announcements on the war machine, which Britain is pivoting towards. We'll come back to this in a second. But here's what Healey had to say, or part of it at least.
As I speak, a Russian spy ship, the Yantar, is on the edge of UK waters north of Scotland, having entered the UK's wider waters over the last few weeks. This is a vessel designed for gathering intelligence and mapping our undersea cables. We deployed a Royal Navy frigate and RAF P-8 planes to monitor and track this vessel's every move, during which the Yantar directed lasers at our pilots. That Russian action is deeply dangerous. And this is the second time this year that this ship, the Yantar, has deployed to UK waters. So my message to Russia and to Putin is this: we see you, we know what you're doing, and if the Yantar travels south this week, we are ready. And I want to praise the dedication and professionalism of our armed forces. They work 24/7 every day of the year to keep this nation safe.
What does it mean if the Yantar travels south?
Well,
Scotland doesn't count, or it just becomes an English waters?
No. What he means is because he simply lied there. He said that the Yantar was in British waters. It was not in British waters. It was international waters. What he means by traveling south is into British waters. Right. So the implication is that it's doing something illegal or something which is, again, as we talked about on Wednesday's program, something which is unusual.
Laser attacks as well.
Laser attacks, yeah.
Is it talking about pen lasers?
Because
is that possible from a ship? If the cockpit is set on top of the plane, is that even possible? It's
possible because the laser can bounce off it. But anyway, it doesn't matter. It happens often on civilian but the point here is Healey is determined to try to persuade us all that Russia is pursuing some kind of effort to attack, right? They're trying to justify some kind of Article 5 thing. That's one of the things they're trying to do. But just on this issue of the Yantar and what it's doing, Craig Murray here has posted this on X, and I think this is absolutely right. The Starmer government have rammed the hypocrisy dial up to 11. This was in September, and they're talking about here the massive hypocrisy of Healy's comments. This is the Norwegian frigate, the Tor Heyerdahl, because it went to the Barents Sea together with U.S. Navy's Arleigh-class destroyer, USS Ross, the British Royal Navy Auxiliary, RFA Tidespring, and the frigate HMS Sutherland. This was also supported by Danish support aircraft. And at the time, they said the vessel group will operate north of Finnmark and the Fisherman Peninsula in the course of the next few days. So, this is exactly the same type of scenario.
But that's in Russian exclusive economic zone.
But it's still in international waters, but it's certainly absolutely right up against
First time
Russian
since
territory.
First time since the 1990s.
Right. And
so who's provoking who?
The point is, we're provoking each other all the time. This is absolutely normal behavior, but Healy is attempting to persuade us that this is something that is not normal, that it's going above and beyond what's normal. But look, let's just finish this off by pointing out the sheer levels of propaganda. So BBC leading the charge, naturally. So stories like this one, WhatsApp messages have revealed how a prominent MEP for Nigel Farage's Brexit party took bribes as part of a pro-Russian influence campaign in the European Parliament. This is Nathan Gill, and they're saying that he went on to become leader of the Reform Party in Wales, that he's facing prison for taking money from an alleged pawn of the main security agency in Vladimir Putin's Russia, that he was paid thousands of pounds to give TV interviews in favour of a key Putin ally and to make speeches in the European Parliament between December 2018 and July 2019. So that's that one. What's the next one? Friday night drug deals helping Russian war machine, US crime agency wars. So buying cocaine on a Friday night in Britain can indirectly help Russian arms factories, according to the National Crime Agency. They said that a man linked to a Russian-led money laundering network operating in the UK had bought a bank in Kyrgyzstan, which was used to make payments on behalf of the Russian war machine. But hold on, Patrick. The biggest users of cocaine in the UK are found in the House of Commons, right? But cocaine on the toilet seats. This is and internationally, the most commonly seen nose wipers are those found in trains to Kiev, are they not? So are these people supporting the Russian war effort? Is that what's going on?
I guess they are. This is quite a stretch, isn't it? That recreational drug users on Friday night are somehow bankrolling Putin's war machine.
Never mind the fact
they should be sanctioned, all of them.
Exactly. Never mind the fact that Europe is still buying oil from. But anyway, that doesn't matter. But getting back to Healy's speech, he went on to say this: that earlier in the year, the Prime Minister said security and defence, and I quote, is now the central organising principle of government, the pillar on which everything else falls. He talked about the forthcoming budget, and it's clear that this upcoming budget is going to be a war budget. And then he went on to say, so within this parliament, I want Britain to become the best place in the world to invest and grow a defence business. I want Britain's armed forces to be the fastest innovating military in NATO. And he said that the British government investment in defence, he hopes, is going to be matched by private investment, and our communities right across Britain to see working people with new skills, new jobs, and new hope for their families and their future, because the entire British economy is going to be based on blowing up people in other countries.
War.
Yes.
Yeah, war. So, we've gone from good green jobs. You remember that?
Yes.
David Cameron, Blair. Now it's good defense jobs. No more good green jobs, I guess, just war jobs. So who is Britain defending itself against?
Well, Russia.
What about the French? Are they going to invade? Or maybe it's the boats. I don't know. I mean,
I think some people have been taking too much cocaine, but anyway.
It could. They're blaming the cold weather front as well on Russia somehow. So maybe they can do a wall against the cold wind coming from the beast from the east. You remember that? So,
well, we're experiencing that at the moment, I think. But anyway, we will need to leave it there for today. Patrick, thank you. Thanks to Kit Klarenberg and to Basil Valentine. We'll be back in a few minutes. Our UK Column member for some UK Column News Extra. Otherwise, don't forget Jerem and Carl tonight. But have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday, 1 p.m. as usual. See you then. Bye-bye.